Hello, hello. Welcome back to the AFOS podcast. Thanks for coming back. Right, today I really want to talk about the Alexander brothers, and I want to talk about it because it's currently happening right now. I have been following this case as it's been going on, and they officially gave them a guilty verdict for all accounts on sex, prostitution, sex trafficking, you name it, they did it, all three of them. And so let's go into who are the Alexander brothers. I'm going to take you back, talk about them, talk about who they are as people, and then I'm going to talk about all of the allegations, all of the situations that they put themselves in, and others. So, who are the Alexander brothers and why are they trending right now? So, the Alexander brothers are three wealthy real estate moguls named, there's two twins, Oren and Alon, and they're 37 years old. And then they have an older brother at 38 named Tal. Now, the two twins, Oren and Alan, they're very famous. I believe they were on reality shows. They were just everywhere in the news. And Tal's a bit more, he's popular, but he's not as forefront as the twins. And so they belong to a really huge celebrity real estate ring, I would say, in Miami. And they work with huge high profile people like Kim Kardashian, Beyonce, et cetera, et cetera. To also Tommy Hilfiger, Steve Madden, fashion designers. And they're just part of the, society. They're a huge part of society. And in fact, their brother's father, Shalomi, he's an Israeli-born home developer, and their mother, Orly, is the CFO and co-founder of Kent Security. And now actually one of the twin sons, he was the current president of Kent Security. I'm sure if I did a deep dive into Kent Security, would see all the fucking red flags, you know what I mean? But I'm not going to do that now because I'm going to stay focused. So Alon, one of the twins, he received his bachelor's degree, funnily enough, in criminal justice at the University of Maryland in '08, the same year that Jeffrey Epstein got a guilty conviction of child prostitution and sex trafficking. Even though I hate that word, prostitution for child, but it is what it is. And then he went off to like law school and all of that. And then Oren, the other twin, he graduated from the University of Colorado Boulder in '08, the same year as Epstein's conviction, with a degree in finance. And Tal, I believe, he had a bachelor's degree in marketing. And I think he also graduated around the same time. So like just a little bit more background around them. In 2021, Oren and Tal purchased a $10 million waterfront home in Miami. Have you noticed all of the scandals? Most of them are in Miami. It's because you can get away with a lot of stuff there, huh? Ron DeSantis. Actually, Ron DeSantis just signed a bill yesterday that if you are guilty of child prostitution and pedophilia, you have the death sentence. Isn't that ironic? And the Southern District of Florida, now that I think about it, they're all up in the Epstein files because they're the ones that hid it for years. So actually, I kind of love it. The next governor, maybe we need to do the trials. Maybe we need to do the Epstein trials in Florida. Because honestly, I was so against the death penalty, war, killing, but these Epstein mother effers, I'm telling ya, public execution from me. Okay, so what do we know about the sex trafficking scandals and more of their schemes? Well, Tal, Oren, and Alexander spent years in Miami and New York where they had power, access to wealth, all of that luxury real estate, just like the Epstein class. That's why we've always said it's not the island. It's not just the island and the little plane because they had bunch of little friends. But then in 2024, December of 2024, they were arrested for the first time. And the reason why is because they worked together and with others known and unknown to repeatedly and violently drug, sexually assault, and rape dozens of victims for years. And after a week-long trial, the brothers were found guilty on multiple federal sex offenses on March 9th. Following the verdict, though, federal prosecutors issued a statement condemning the brothers' heinous abuse and thanking the victims to come forward. The judge goes, quote, "These are chilling, reprehensible, and unacceptable acts. We commend the victims for their courage in coming forward and testifying at the trial." So several women had alleged that they had been sexually assaulted or drugged by the three siblings. So, prosecutors alleged that in January 2026, that more than 40 women have accused at least one of the Alexander brothers for rape and sexual assault. And then later on, it ended up being all three. Federal prosecutors claim that the brothers used their rented summer home in the Hamptons to attract women, to persuade them. Basically, they would like lure them into a trap, kind of like Epstein, right? With the young minors. He would lure them into a trap of like, I can give you everything you ever wanted. You're poor, you're in poverty, but I can make you rich and I can give you that high life. You can fly on jets. Yeah, you can party with the elites and the stars and all that stuff. And people love that, especially when you're young. And so the brothers would lure in these women to their accommodations where it was safe for them to then rape them, sexually assault them, beat them, you name it, torture them. The prosecutors say that several women recalled one of the siblings preparing a drink for them that left them unable to move or speak. Spiking drinks, typically what disgusting rapists do. Prosecutors also claim that Orrin, one of the twins, allegedly sent his brother Tal, the oldest brother, a text in 2021 that read, "We are on top of the game, and that the only thing that can bring us down is some hoe complaining." So there was another woman who's actually not involved with the group of women that came, survivors that came forward. She was a whole separate case who then came out and claimed that she was sexually assaulted at 13 years old by 5 boys, high school boys. 5 of them sexually assaulted her, raped allegedly at 13 years old. And one of those high school students was Tal, the oldest brother. And this was in the early 2000s. Tal's attorney, though, came out and said that this is false, adding that her client is focused on fighting these charges currently being tried in federal court. They basically said all of her allegations were false. So I just wanted to highlight that because it's kind of like Epstein, right? And I'll talk about their Epstein ties in a minute, where a lot of people feel empowered, a lot of survivors and victims who may have been suppressed and threatened and scared to come forward, which were especially when they're minors and young, right? Even if they're in their 20s, young, starting to feel empowered to come out and speak their truth. So upon being arrested, the brothers were each charged with one account of engaging in sex trafficking conspiracy and one account of sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. One of the top charges, Tal, was additionally charged with a second count of sex trafficking by force and fraud. And then fast forward to March of 2026, so just literally a few days ago, they were found guilty. And the reason why this was a bit of a relief, a sigh of relief, because I do believe people were a bit nervous. We've seen it with the Epstein class. We've seen it with a lot of these rich, successful people, high profile individuals get away with it. People were a little nervous. They were a little nervous. And in fact, the victims and survivors finally got justice. And so they were found guilty. And the trial was a week long. And then the deliberation was 3 days long. And then the Alexander brothers were found guilty in all accounts, and they each faced by the jury. So every single count that they were accused of, they were found guilty. So now they're currently being held in the Brooklyn Detention Center, where Luigi Mangione, you know, the United Healthcare CEO, the one he killed, the healthcare CEO, he's also being held there. And they're waiting for the sentencing, which has been scheduled for August of this year, August 6, 2026, and they can now face life in prison. The brothers actually still face a dozen civil lawsuits that have been filed by their accusers, while Orrin and Alon face charges of sexual battery in a separate criminal case in the state of Florida. So basically what's that saying is, either way, they're in a lot of trouble. And if they don't get life, they're going to do their little sentence in New York, but then they're going to hop over to Florida and the other states where they're also going to be charged, hopefully. But Florida just, they have their own problems. They're just really bad. So I just want to talk about the Epstein connection. This is how deep the Epstein connection goes. As you know, Thomas Massie, he has been one of the champions for the Epstein, what is it called? Transparency Act, for releasing the files, et cetera, et cetera. I want to show you something that he put up. Thomas Massie tweeted, the Alexander brothers appeared in the Epstein files files by first name, but I noticed the DOJ redacted their last name in the Epstein email containing to the number. But FBI Director Kash Patel said there's no evidence of sex trafficking in the files. And in fact, Of course, he's absolutely right. This is one of the files, allegations against the Alexander brothers within the Epstein files. They are mentioned a bit. And here is what it says about them right here. Let me zoom in. One of the victims and survivors alleged that at 16 years old, while modeling, Caller attended 8 parties at the Epstein, New York residence. On one of the occasions, Caller reported that she was sexually assaulted by Epstein. On another occasion, 2 twin brothers, Alan and Orrin, lured the caller and her friend upstairs, but they escaped back downstairs. Caller stated that Orrin raped her best friend and a third brother, Tal, raped a 14-year-old girl named Blank. Caller named other individuals involved in a big orgy parties with her, other young girls and older Victoria's Secret models, including Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. Online complaint reported that she was a victim and witnessed a sex trafficking ring at the Trump Golf Course Ranch in Rancho Palo Verdes, which is not far from me, between 1995 and 1996. And that's basically where they mention it goes on, but they are mentioned as raping kids in the Epstein files. That golf course about Trump, by the way, they're saying that there's bodies buried at like the 19th hole. So this is how deep the Epstein sex trafficking, prostitution, whatever you want to call it, ring is, pedophile ring is, fraud ring, torture ring is. The Alexander brothers had ties to Epstein and Donald Trump, allegedly. And that is exactly why I'm never going to stop talking about the Epstein files. So now we wait until August 6th, 2026, and I'm going to be paying very close attention to the Alexander brothers. But they have been found guilty as raping minors, torturing minors, fraud, all of that. It's about time. It's about time more people go down. But we still have a lot of people to go. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Please like, subscribe to support my independent journey. I'm going to be covering Epstein nonstop, cases like this nonstop. So, yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.